we a nation that's about knowledge now? Or are we a nation that's about substituting the language of the hard left for real words?
That said that if that Hunter Biden laptop story
have any arguments against that right now, and I want to see how it goes. All right, so we got one we're about to check out. Apparently, Thomas Sowell had a conversation with to Levin. I don't know who Levin. Well, I do know Levin. I don't know his first name though. But apparently, they was talking about America, and it got pretty good. It got pretty good. Somebody told me I need to go ahead and check this joint out. So that's exactly what I'm doing.
For Saturday, and we have one of my great heroes, the great Thomas Sowell. Most of you know who Thomas Sowell is. He wrote columns for decades. He's written fantastic books. He's been a leader in the liberty movement for at least half a century, as far as I'm concerned. He's been warning the American people of tyranny, what tyranny looks like, creeping tyranny, aggressive tyranny. And from my perspective, we're sitting dab in the middle of it. And he's got this fantastic new book out, Social Justice Fallacies by Thomas Sowell. You can get it at Amazon.com or any major bookstore. It is a fantastic book. And I want to welcome you, Dr. Sowell, and let me just say this to you. I've been following you since I was a little kid, not to date both of us, and you had an enormous impact on my life. In fact, you've had an enormous impact on the way I do this program. I remember you on with Bill Buckley and Firing Line, and you were a killer debater. Absolutely unbelievable. All that said, let me start it this way. Social justice fallacies. You started out as a Marxist, as many young people do in colleges and universities, and it didn't take long for you to realize, wait a minute, this isn't all that it's cooked up to be. Was this social justice stuff and this inequality stuff, these terms, these ambiguities, did that have an impact on you first being a Marxist and then realizing, wait a minute, this is all BS?
Yes, it did. And I think there's a very simple explanation that as of the time I became a Marxist, I didn't know as much as I knew after several years of study and observing things going on. Facts carried a lot of weight with me. And when the facts kept going the wrong way, I realized that this was not going to do what it claimed it was going to do.
Now, before he continues, I just want to let y'all know I am going to do some running of my mouth. But I do want to say this. Thomas Sowell really changed the way that I looked at the world when I started to react to him. I didn't know who that guy was until y'all started saying, you need to review something from Thomas Sowell. He's the real deal, blah, blah, blah. Now, I do want to say initially I thought, and this is no disrespect to you all, but there are some people out there who did this simply because, hey, is another black guy checking out conservative stuff. Let's give him some people to go to. Hey, I know a black guy who's also conservative that you might listen to. Maybe you should check out Thomas Sowell. You know, that's how it came to me some ways, but most times it didn't come to me that way. And when I did finally check him out, I started to really understand the world, the way that slavery, the way he talked about slavery, and the way he shared stories of other cultures who also suffered and still suffered from slavery. Yeah, I just had to say that right there.
One of the big problems about the social justice is that what they say sounds so good. It's only after you study history that you find out just how bad, how horribly it actually turned out.
Well, these phrases are very nebulous. Social justice. What does that mean? Basically, if you agree with the Marxists and the leftists, then you support social justice. But on the other hand, if you support individuality and capitalism and private property rights, obviously you're anti-social justice. What does all this mean?
That's how they look at it. They seem to assume a world in which if things don't turn out the same for everybody, that means that somebody has done somebody wrong. And that's an incredible assumption that human beings have such enormous control over their own fates individually or collectively. I mean, when I think back over my life, and I'm sure other people can do the same in their lives, there are times that a particular person appeared on the scene and changed the whole trajectory of my life. And it's happened more than once, and I'm sure it's happened in the lives of many other people. There's nobody out there who has all the incredible amount of knowledge required to take over making other people's decisions for them.
Do you find that these radicals, these autocrats basically, this term social justice, do they really mean centralized government, redistribution of wealth, a permanent government that undermines representative government? Isn't this really the nomenclature for that?
It is. If you realize what enormously high opinions many of the intellectual elites have of themselves. You can see that what it boils down to is very intellectual people like themselves just simply preempting the decisions of other people in every aspect of their lives. One of the things that is astonishing to me now is that we're having this big debate about sex education in the schools. And to me, the question is, what qualifies the people who are pushing this stuff to take over the roles of parents? What's also very troubling is that this all came out during the pandemic when students were studying at home and the parents got to see what was being taught in the schools. Now, it so happens that 30 years ago, I wrote a book called Inside American Education, in which all of this was laid out just exactly as it's happening now. The fraudulence of it, the appearance that this is responding to what the students want. I can't imagine how many young people in the elementary schools especially are saying that they are a boy but they want to be a girl, or they're a girl and want to be a boy. I can't think of anybody in my whole lifetime who was saying things like that. And if you follow the sort of institutional way these things are done, there are groups outside the school system and inside the school system who want to do this and who know that the parents don't want them to do it, and they do it anyway, and they pretend that they're responding to what the students want. They're not. Once I was at a meeting of educators. While I was there was a man who was going around the country selling a particular brainwashing program. And he showed me his schedule, and he was scheduled, my gosh, for every 2 or 3 days for months to be pushing this stuff in all the schools. And he mistook me as if he thought I was a school official, and he was regaling me with all of this. It's clear this is not a spontaneous thing. This is organized. The tactics used are the tactics that were developed for brainwashing in communist countries.
The book is Social Justice Fallacies by Dr. Thomas Sowell. And in fact, Dr. Sowell, critical race theory, the 1619 Project, these are really anti-knowledge, aren't they? They're really propaganda devices for the hard left that are being, pushed in our classrooms, pushed in our society, and so forth. These attacks on the American system, do they promote?
Yeah, I know that when he said it, man. I know when he brought it up, I couldn't even listen with a straight face, man. I had to start giggling because that dude is hilarious. I'm mad that I checked out. Do y'all know where that came from? All right, I'm sure y'all know where it came from. Some people don't know where it came from. When you see what about 1619? When the guy was saying that he was at a Trump rally. It was a black dude. He went to a Trump rally. And the reason why he didn't go to a Trump rally, he went to protest the Trump rally. So across the street from the Trump rally was protesters, right? And the protesters were protesting the people who were just standing in line and nicely in a long line, because there were a lot of people, and they was trying to go to the Trump rally, and somebody came over there and said, "Won't you come over here? Let me take you inside of here with me, and let's see how it's going to be. I mean, it's not going to be what you think it is." And he was like, "You sure they not going to hurt me, Adi? What about 1619? And he was going back and forth with him, and he ended up enjoying himself. He ended up, some of his preconceived notions he had about Trump supporters and the MAGA movement was flipped once he got back outside. But that don't just wipe off like dirt. That don't just wipe off, man. That type of ignorance don't wipe off until you make steps. You got to be intentional. You got to make intentional steps to not want to be ignorant about a thing, like to reach out for the information, or to let your guards down and just listen objectively when somebody talks about it. It's that simple. Other than that, you are going to stay in your bubble. You're never going to be out. And guess what? You're going to be comfortable. I didn't know that was still going across the screen, man. But yeah, so a lot of these people on the right, man, I'm talking about Mark Levin even, and Thomas Sowell, man, they got me out of my bubble, bro. And the information that they gave me, and it made me better off. It didn't introduce me to any house coats or any house slaves who was just trying to snitch on white people and snitch on black people and get black people in trouble. Boss, come over here. I found four more. I found four more, boss. Oh, they over there, boss. They over there smoking their reefers. Yeah. See, and that right there is self-hate 100% and us just trying to be against each other. And we need to stop that, man.
Equality? Do they promote unity? Do they promote a melting pot society, or are they intended to destroy this culture?
Clearly, it's the latter. And also, when you said it's not just propaganda, it is propaganda that overtly prevents other views from being heard. If they were just propagandizing, but the students were allowed to learn other things as well, different ways of looking at life, that's one thing. But anyone who, for example, there are people who've taught academic courses on racial and ethnic issues at Harvard and other places who just simply stopped teaching their courses. Because if they were saying anything that was different from what the propagandists were saying, you would have violence on the campus and so on, and the university administrators would not protect their classes. So they just stopped doing it. One of the great scholars in this area, the late Stephen Thernstrom, simply stopped teaching his course because you had ignorance silencing knowledge.
Ignorance silencing knowledge. And
Ignorance silencing knowledge. Ignorance silencing knowledge. Ain't that wild? What's the loudest thing that you hear on the internet? Ignorance or knowledge? That sounds like Candace Owens. Candace Owens says, I put the truth out there and the truth will be louder. Right now, a lie will get across the world really quickly. The truth, oh man, that joint get blocked by. But what if? Hold on. Answer this though. How about this? But what about this? Have you thought about that? But have you looked at it this way? What about that?
Stop it. Get some help.
But you put something negative out there about somebody, that joint go, whoo. Now, oh, did you hear that? Oh man, let me tell you. It goes down the daggone line. Now, once it start at person number 1, but once it get to person number 10, 10, I was about to say 50, but once it get to the 10th person, that story done changed like crazy. That bad boy probably changed twice already. And imagine when it gets around the world. So that's why we got to take what we hear with a grain of salt. You know what I mean?
you write an entire section on knowledge. You break it down into different subsections.
It goes viral because it's disease.
Let me ask you this. I don't even know if you watch news these days, but you're talking about what goes on in the classroom. Are we really a nation that's about knowledge now? Or are we a nation that's about substituting the language of the hard left for real words, substituting the thought process of people who really seek to find, quote unquote, the truth with ideology? What have we become on the whole? I mean, when I watch the news, all I hear is propaganda, surface level BS.
Well, yes, that's the norm, unfortunately, in academic institutions, even the most prestigious. With the entire Ivy League in that same mode, that people who, it scares me because you have people like, say, Heather McDonald or Charles Murray will come on a campus, and they do so at physical risk to themselves. And again, the authorities do nothing. I've been, because I don't normally go to those things anyway, but I've been in some of them where they had the police all around, the doors all locked, and people outside banging on the windows and doors just to disrupt the talk that's going on inside. I remember back in 1969, this has been going on a long time, and it's so sad that it's taken us so long to become aware of it. 1969, students at Harvard went into the administration building, seized it, went into the personnel records, and were passing out all the personal information for the faculty and other things to the media and so on. The president of Harvard called in the police. The Harvard faculty gave a vote of no confidence to the president. He resigned.
I knew none of this. And this is why I check out these videos. If you're ever one of those type of people and you wonder, why do Van check out these videos right here? What is it about these videos? You know, somebody once told me that they said you be pandering. That's what they said. They said you be pandering. They said you be on your channel pandering. That's what they said. And the only reason why I brought that up is because at one point, I will say this, I was checking out different people because it was doing better for the numbers. It was doing amazing for the numbers. Go look at your favorite reaction channel. All of your favorite reaction channels react to the same sugar honey iced tea, period. All of the reaction channels you watch are reacting to the same sugar honey iced tea. Some of them could give a damn about what's going on in the world. Some of them actually give a crap about what's going on in the world, all right? And the ones who don't give a damn, they are focusing a whole lot on the numbers. If it does well, oh man, that video did 40,000 for that channel, I'm gonna do it. That video did 100,000 views in a day, I'm going to do it. That video did 300,000 in one day, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? And it's back and forth, and it's not conducive to personal growth. I mean, probably financial growth, but not personal growth. That's not going to help them level up intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, none of that. And that's unfortunate.
And I think after that, other presidents decided that the way is to get along is have preemptive surrender. And that's been really developed into an art.
You've been studying our country for a very long time. The history, economics, philosophy, you covered the whole horizon. 40 years ago, 50 years ago, today. Is the country in a better position today than it was half a century ago? Or is it in a worse position today?
Oh, much worse, much worse. The silencing of the other side has now become much more prominent. And the real danger is not in the silly ideas that are being promoted. It's in the fact that nobody else is allowed to reply to them without some danger to themselves.
You hear that? The silencing is at an all-time high today. Well, that's mainly because of social media. If social media was out back in those days, it would be the same. I mean, think about it, guys. Come on now. We have abilities to communicate faster than we ever did in our lives, man.
Do you see in this country a growing police state? I don't necessarily mean a police state like you'll see in these aggressive fascist or Marxist regimes, but sort of slowly but surely, like you're talking about controlling the language, which controls thought and activity, this massive censorship that judges have now ruled on by this administration. You can see the politicization of the Department of Justice and so forth.
You wild,
Let me put it to you
Craig.
this way, a more fine point. Are we a free country today? I remember Mises once saying that Americans talk like Marxists. Are we a free country today, or are we a country on the precipice of losing our freedom?
I think the latter. It's hard for me to see just how we're going to come out of this, especially when people who are so willing to increase the powers of government don't seem to understand that it doesn't matter for what purpose you gave them that power, which may have been good purposes. Once they have that power, they can use it for whatever they want. You know, the Federal Reserve System was set up, for example, to prevent runaway inflation or runaway deflation or bank failures. And the intellectuals were 100% behind that. But the cold fact is that there's been more deflation, as in during the Great Depression, and more inflation for decades on end, and more bank failures than ever occurred prior to the setting up of the Federal Reserve System. But the Federal Reserve System, for example, can force people to do things they don't want to do just because they have the power to hold up what their decisions are. And so the power created for one purpose is then used for some different purpose. When FDR took the United States off the gold standard, he used the law passed during the First World War to prevent trading with enemy nations. But once the power was there, you could use it for anything you wanted to.
All right, so that was our guy, Thomas Sowell, talking to Mark Levin. And the reason why we just now checked this out is because this was a really new conversation, probably like 3 days ago it started. And I'm glad we did check it out. It brought about some good conversation. And I might even said some things that made some sense. And you know what I mean? You got to record those times because most times I don't make no damn sense. Most times I'm wrong as hell. Ask my wife. She'll tell you.